Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. Now, it would be an overstatement to say that Kenya is grappling with how to elect more women into decision-making positions, but that is the case. There is proposed legislation against that. And we're discussing that with Daisy Amdani, who's the convener of the National Women's Steering Committee, and Wanjiku Mohia, who is the Nyandarua Women's Rep and a member of Kewopa. And before the break, we had just come into the cultural environment we find ourselves in. And I think, Mutegi, you were trying to make the point that women don't vote for each other, which Daisy challenged. Please make the point further.
If the argument by her that you create...
By Ms. Muhia.
Ms. Muhia, that you create seats for women. Like she said, in some communities, they will never vote for women. The cultural, you remember the case of that woman, the girl, 16-year-old, who was burnt and then headed for... Those kind of people will never vote for a woman.
But they voted for one because the Constitution provided for a seat exclusively for women. And that region, because of that, has a woman leader. And what that does is it begins to break those cultural stereotypes. Because while the culture is telling them you cannot be leaders, the Constitution has said we can have women leaders and is showing that women are leaders. No. But let me also say this, that at the end of
that is imposition.
Yes, but no, you know what? Affirmative action, by definition, is discrimination, only that it is positive discrimination, okay? And the Constitution allows it. In fact, it lays the burden on the state to actually come up with affirmative actions, policies and programs to redress the marginalization of groups that have been excluded. This is in the Bill of Rights, Article 27, Sub-Article 6, and Sub-Article 8 is the one that provides that in addition to the measures in 6, that is affirmative action, policy and legislative measures, the state shall ensure not more than 2/3 of the same gender. And let me say this, Kenya received an award this year in New York at CSW for the country that closed the gender gap the fastest, okay? Closed, the fastest closing, not that it has closed the gender gap, but it has done so the fastest. And the reason for this is because of the constitutional provisions, okay? That the Constitution provided for affirmative action seats, the 47 women, the 16 and the 80, the 20 seats, and not just women. By the way, the affirmative action is not just for women, it is for disabled, it is for youth, all these groups that are marginalized.
I do think, I think we need woodwork, in my view, to move to the specific proposals and how they stand and whether they are, to use the word, acceptable in the circumstances.
Can they be acceptable given the cultural environment that we're finding ourselves in? Because hang on, it was very interesting to find that in discussing this, there's been quite a bit of laughter from both yourself and Mutegi, and that some of that is reflected in the messages we're receiving. Why are we coming up with this issue of one-third gender rule at this juncture instead of concentrating on national development? That came from Joe. There's a similar one which says, are these issues aimed at diverting attention from our main enemies, corruption and terrorism? Will gender balance solve these problems, or are we just playing politics? Will we add other new fresh women with good development records? And so there's a perception, Ms. Muhia, Daisy, that when we talk about getting women into office, having more female representation, that this doesn't really affect the country's development.
It does. And before Mheshimiwa says, let me say that it does. When you talk about corruption, even this bill, the proposal to amend, that is corruption. It's corruption of the Constitution. But when you look at the strides that have been made, the legislations that have been passed since we had the women in Parliament, because you know that we have the highest number since independence, you know, in the 11th Parliament. Look at the bills that have been passed. We have the Family Protection Bill, Prevention Against Domestic Violence, Marital Property, the Matrimonial Property Act, the Marriage Act, acts that have been doing the rounds in Parliament since our founding father, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. Some of those legislations have been doing the rounds in Parliament since then, and it has taken more women in Parliament to actually move these legislations. And what does it do? It secures the family, it secures women, it secures the society, okay? Now, I think it is also very unfair for people to judge the women at this point, because they're new entrants. It's only been 2 years, and I think that when we look at the 2 years that they've been there, we have seen tremendous progress. Even the women in cabinet. Remember that all the women that are in cabinet today are in there because of the not more than 2/3 same gender principle. But look at this. We have the Minister for Lands, Honorable Charity Ngilu, 1.3 million title deeds. Never mind all those other things. But in Kenya, where land is such no, but look, land is a very emotive issue in this country. So many people have been denied their title deeds. But since she got into office, we've had 1.5 or 3 million title deeds given to women. Look at the Cabinet Secretary for Devolution. Look at what she's done with the youth. Look at, I mean, just look at, I mean, even in terms of profiling, what government has done, a lot of it has been moved by women.
I want to say that this perception is actually a perception of ignorance. And why I say this is because people have that perception that especially when they see women in parliament, they want to see women championing the motion and all that, clearly not understanding how parliament works. For instance, there is laws and tradition of parliament that if you are the senior member, you are always given the opportunity. If you are the majority, the leader of majority, leader of minority, the chairs and all that. But I always do the equation statistically. We have how many men versus women? We have 349 men. We have 349 members minus 68. Even if we did the ratio, we would definitely find that even women speak more than men.
Absolutely.
We have men who have even never spoken or moved a bill in that parliament. If we go and start calculating the motions, the bills, and I can be proud to state that I did move persons with disability bill, and it is just about to be signed to become law in this country. If you find Millie Odhiambo, she has been moving many motions. If you find women like Amina, who are even nominated, they've been championing many motions, while we have over 100 men who may have not even attempted to do anything. So this perception is just created, and it is a creation that we really need to do away with. I want to say that women have done very well. However, this very country, from whichever quarter, there is a tendency to try to put women down and to degrade, even by denying the machinery. And the pointing scenario is 47 women. When we got in parliament, having that big region, a woman studying for 17 constituencies, 13 constituencies, 10 constituencies, without a single shilling, with the same salary as the MP, without extra mileage, that when I drive to Kipipiri constituency, I'll leave my male MP at Kipipiri and I'll proceed all the way to Daragwa with my own fuel. These are things that Kenyans have not known, that women have actually been working extra hard, possibly 10 times more than men. Absolutely. And if women are given the right environment, this country can move. And just a pointing case from the corruption that has just been mentioned. How many cases were there for women? Even if they were, if we still could do ratio, how could we fight the ratio?
Well, I think that it cannot be disputed that women do a good job. Many, just like as many men do a great job.
Isn't the problem
of those who don't do a good job?
Yeah, isn't the problem
similarly among women? There are those who don't do a great job, and we don't want to support any of them.
But why do we always pick on women? Why doesn't anybody ever ask the question, what do the men do? They are the majority. Why is it always the question falls back on, what do the women do? What do the women do? What value do the women add? Let me ask the question, what do the men do and what value do they add? I mean, this is a very unfair question, and I'm not saying that women reserve the right to be useless, but I'm saying that we must have an equal footing, whereby we look at our legislators. What are our legislators doing? And it is true. As Mheshimiwa has said,
why that question is unfair is because the men did not get there by affirmative action. You see, that's why you cannot
the men have
not just
patriarchy
with the question, because here are people asking for a special privilege. So when they do, people say, so what?
It is a special privilege to redress marginalization.
Yes,
and I think that we must make sure that
the foundations are okay. I was putting your question in context.
If I could come in,
I was about to.
In these proposals, the main proposals where men have suggested, they have wished us to have nomination, and the women, the Gender Commission has purely rejected nomination because they know women are capable, and women that have vied and they have been going through electoral process are strong women, and they have only asked for nomination on the top-up seats.
Absolutely.
But every man who is coming with a certain proposal, they want nomination so that they can always shut women. You are nominated, they are not given the right space, they are not given the right environment to proceed and work.
But let me also say that this is a great misperception that we have in Kenya, whereby that if you are elected, or if you are a nominated member of parliament, you're somewhat lesser. Because this is one of the problems that we have the county women MCAs being subjected to. Yet, we have never ever heard that anybody referring to the 12 seats that have been our traditionally nominated seats. Nobody has ever referred to those seats as useless. But it's only now when it comes to women that these views are presented. And let me say this, the Constitution is very clear in Article 90. It recognizes election through nominations as a different kind of election. Because remember, it's a party process. Those people who get onto these lists, because it's not just women who are being nominated. We have youth being nominated. We have persons with disabilities being nominated. And this does not make them lesser than the members who have gone through the ballot. It's only in Kenya where we believe that we must go through some traumatizing, rigorous process to validate.
That's not also exactly true, because look, the responsibilities of an elected member of a constituency compared to the responsibilities of a generally nominated member are different, because expectations are direct to you as an MP of that particular constituency. In the past, and why that notion exists is because people were just picked who had no particular constituency, whether the people with disabilities or special women interests, they were just picked and nominated.
But now we have very clear constituencies that they're representing. They're representing women, unless you believe that women are not a constituency.
Now we're trying to frame and give value to those nominations. That's the whole point.
With disabilities.
Ideally, nomination actually is even a process of discriminated parties to come on board. And we can have pointing case like Cheche. She was nominated, she was about to vie. We have a pointing case like Mili, a very strong member in parliament. It is not only a stepping stone, but these are issues and ways how we should get out of this social injustice.
David,
I want to ask something different. Are there places in this country where you cannot have women leadership acceptable? Say, for instance, you take a county commissioner in a certain area, and the people there say, this one. Isn't there a situation like that?
Well, there has been, I know of, but it was some time back, where we had a deputy PC who actually went to make a speech during one of our public celebrations, and the leaders said that they would not allow her to speak because she was a woman, and in that culture women cannot speak, and they actually asked her to give the speech to her driver to read, so because he's a man. Like no, that is why we have affirmative action. That's why we have the law as the guiding principle, the Constitution that provides for that. Because once we have women in those positions, it begins to break those barriers. Those women right now who are elected on the 47 seats, the women who are in the county assemblies, because let me tell you that there is no county in this country where we do not have women leaders. And by just being there, they're breaking that stereotype. As they perform, as people begin to see the value addition that women bring, it will begin to change their minds. And it
but they don't change. In many counties, the women who are there, they are just there.
No.
Sometimes they cannot even vote.
No. It is not that. It is that right is taken away. It is unconstitutional.
Which is actually in Senate, that the 47 senators do vote, and the 16 women cannot vote.
Yes.
That is also a constitutional corruption.
It is gender-based discrimination, because
this woman has been debating this debate. Somebody have even possibly seconded the debate. Then when you come to make the decision,
but let me also say this. These issues are only coming up when we brought in the Constitution of Kenya 2010. In the councils before, we had nominated members. These issues never arose. In Parliament, we've always had nominated members. These issues have not arisen. They have arisen when now we have specific quotas to include women. That shows you the cultural setting and the socialization of people. It is against women. So affirmative action works towards re-socializing and changing people's attitudes towards women's leadership. And so it's only 2 years, and I think that as we keep at it, and as the women continue, because you know, you must also remember that a lot of women have been excluded from political processes.
I want to put this text message to Mutegi, because I think this is the line that you've been arguing. This nonsense should stop. We can't afford to be paying salaries for individuals who are not adding any value to our lives. We should go to a referendum and remove all these outrageous inclusions in the Constitution by civil society. And that came from Ruben in Embakasi.
Well, I don't agree with him, but as I said, this is culture. There are certain places where I have my sister-in-law was a councillor and a mayor in our place. But in some constituencies, in some areas of this country, it will not have happened. That's what the point I'm making.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that we abolish. Like her, I'm saying encourage those things, like the one we don't want, progressive. You don't want progressive. But in certain areas, you need progressive education of people to accept women leadership.
Okay.
No,
David, I'll put this, Daisy, just a minute. David, I'll put this one to you. Favors, favors, and more favors. A third gender rule propagating the culture of Omba Omba and Serikali's idea. I want my daughter to fight for her space, not to be given things on a silver platter. Women are resigning themselves to second-class human beings. This will only assist the political type, NGO type, and absolute feminist type. And then there's this: why do women create issues out of nothing? Leadership is about taking responsibilities. Why didn't women MPs react over security of this nation and go for elective posts and stop being over demanding? And that comes from Jano and Langata.
I think it's a little too extreme to say, but there is the overriding logic in that post, in that message, is that we need to be as much as possible competitive in our politics and reduce the favored status of women in our society. So that, because also, by the way, the Constitution...
So you would agree that women are asking for things on a silver platter?
Well, let's call a spade. Yes and no. Because if they demand extra seats which are reserved for only women to contest, such as a proposal has been put forth, that, for example, there's one here which I would straight away oppose. This one of saying rotational, you choose 4 constituencies. So, yes.
And the one of
this year, this election, will have a woman MP elected in that constituency.
In that area.
That is patently discriminatory against men in that constituency, which is also prohibited by the Constitution, because we are supposed not to be discriminated upon on the basis of sex, creed, and all these things. Why would anybody entertain such a proviso that this year men in this constituency have no right, they've been deprived of the constitutional right to contest? Those are the sort of things that that man would be referring to.
If you would read the Constitution, and I repeat, Article 27, sub-Article 6, talks about affirmative action programs. Affirmative action, by definition, is discrimination. Article 24 of the Constitution actually provides for the limitation of rights to achieve certain ends. Now, it also cites the rights that cannot be limited. Yes. Political rights are not among them. And the constituencies don't belong. Listen, constituencies are not owned by men. Constituencies are about
would
representation.
You call election political right? These are fundamental rights.
It is
freedom of choice, and to participate in your government cannot be considered to be a political right that can be waived.
Now, the women have the exact same right, yet it has been denied them.
Denied how?
It has been denied them by culture.
They've been given, except they have not asserted themselves adequately to
David, if we are going to be honest, it has been denied us by culture.
I'd like to pick up on that issue with Ms. Muhia here. The big question to ask the Madam panelists is, why don't women gang together and vote for themselves and therefore end this perception of discrimination? That came from William in Nairobi. And earlier on in the program, you were taken to task for sleeping on the job, for not engaging with the leadership of your party. How would you respond to William?
First, I want to say that women don't want seats for free. That's a fact. And if you just go back and check the 47 women, we contested whole counties like governor, like senator, kilometers and kilometers. I believe women, particularly 47, even did more work than the constituency member of parliament. So in all these proposals, there is nowhere we are asking women to be given on silver platter. And more so, we are we are not even for the idea of nomination. We are only for the idea of nomination on top-up, whereby after we explain the proposals, we are finding that this top-up will be very limited, possibly like what it is today, less than 10, or to some point it can even be very, very minimum. Why are women not able to contest? Why are women not able to have those equal...
Actually, you're not quite answering the question, and I have to take a break. Why can't women vote for...
this is the social injustice that have been there. What Daisy pointed,
what are you doing
the issues of financial, the issues of culture ideologies.
No, that's talking about women contesting, but not women voting.
This is where we are enlightening women now. This is when we are now enlightening women. Now that Wanjiku Moya is elected in Nyandarua, and could this 47 seat have not been there, it would have never been in the limelight. Today, Nyandarua people can see, oh, tomorrow we can even elect Wanjiku, possibly even as the president of this country. But because these opportunities have not been given to women, that is why women have not been able to know that their fellow women have the capacity.
Right. Let's take the case in point of Martha Karua. She ran for presidency. We agree. Right. We agree that women form the bulk of the population, the bulk of the voting population. Why didn't Martha Karua get those votes?
I want to tell you that we are going there, and we are going there very soon. But everything has a foundation, everything has a base.
Can I just say something? Allow me to say something. David, allow me to say
something. Then Daisy will get it. Wanjiku, you got how many votes in Nyandarua?
158,000.
And the governor got how many, roughly?
Similarly around there.
Those people who voted for you, if you run against a man, would they have voted for you? That is the bottom line, because we are saying women are not voting for the women.
Okay, I also want to disagree.
But they are going to vote.
Okay. I want to disagree.
There.
Let me say this. Women and men do vote, okay? But you must look at how people vote. What do people vote? People vote for parties. Now, you look at the number of women that have been elected on the mainstream seats, the 290 seats, have been elected on Jubilee, for instance. All of them were elected in Jubilee strongholds, okay? Now, if you look at the previous parliament, the 10th parliament, we had 21 women elected. If you look at every single one of those women, they were elected in the stronghold of their party. So this now brings us to political parties and the role that political parties play. Because, as Mheshimiwa said earlier on, that we know that there are certain areas where political parties are dominant. And winning the nomination for that party is as good as winning the election. And we have seen that when women get nominated on tickets of the dominant party, they do get elected. So political parties do have a role to play, and therefore our leaders and our political parties cannot escape the fact that they are responsible in ensuring that not more than 2/3. And remember that the Political Parties Act requires that for a political party to be registered, you must have not more than 2/3 of the same gender from the neck down to the grassroots. Not only that, the Political Parties Fund provides 30% of the fund must be used for encouraging the participation and inclusion of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So political parties cannot escape the role that they play in ensuring that we adhere to the Constitution, because people will vote for women if they are nominated on the dominant party. So if political parties step up, and we have the formula, amend the Elections Act, amend the Political Parties Act to provide that they nominate women for what we call winnable seats, not Jubilee nominating women in Bondo or CORD nominating women in Gatundu for their seats. But we have them in their dominant areas, and then we have a fallback, the top-up, whereby we then have special seat members necessary to ensure not more than 2/3. And this is the formula that Ngek has unveiled. And remember that Ngek was the convener of that technical working group of the AG. That is why we are reading absolute mischief in the tabling of this bill.
Okay, and we'll come back to that after this break. You're watching Cheche live on Citizen TV.